My name is Jake Field. I'm an expedition leader, adventure travel guide, and the founder of Ultimate Adventure Travel. Over the years, I have helped hundreds of people step out of their comfort zone and into some of the world's most incredible places: Kilimanjaro, Everest Base Camp, and the Inca Trail. But this podcast isn't just about the destinations. It's about what happens on the trail, the friendships you build, the challenges you overcome, and the confidence that you gain. So welcome to the Ultimate Adventure Travel Podcast. This is your weekly guide to preparing for unforgettable group adventures and getting the most out of every single one. In each episode, I'll share practical advice, inspiring stories from past travelers, and expert interviews. We'll cover training tips, altitude prep, packing, planning, mindset, and all the things no one tells you before you sign up. Whether you're planning your very first trip or you're the one in the group who's always got another adventure lined up, this podcast is here to help you feel confident, ready, and excited about what's ahead. So hit follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. And if you want to get started today, you'll find free downloadable guides to some of our most popular trips linked in the show notes, or head straight over to ultimateadventuretravel.co.uk to see where we're heading next. Thanks for being here. Let's get into it. Graham, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good actually. It's at the moment it's a nice sunny day, which is always nice. So yeah, I'm feeling good.
That's really good. We were having a conversation just before we went live, and everything sounds like it's going really, really well.
Yeah, been busy. Well, it's been a bit of a weird year in terms of what I do. For anybody who's watching, I'm a commercial photographer, so I don't shoot babies, and in the literal or metaphor. I work with professionals, so I don't do family shoots and stuff like that. It's normally working with other professionals, businesses, entrepreneurs, people like yourself, obviously, Jake, and that's what I do. So it's like marketing, headshots, that kind of work. And it's been a weird year. So it started off really well, and then it just died. Everything went quiet. I think perhaps that was to do with current political climate or whatever. I don't know. However, at the moment, it's looking quite good. I've got some quite cool projects coming up over the next sort of 6 months, will keep me going. So yeah, looking forward to the year.
Now we've known each other over a year now, from when we first started talking about adventure travel to where we are now. But I don't think I've ever asked you how you got started in your line of work. What was it that really drew you into photography? I know you've got a keen interest in adventure travel, and we'll get onto that in a minute, but where did it all start for you in terms of taking photographs?
I'll try and keep it short, but it's not a simple answer, but it's also not a happy answer, if that makes sense. You'll become clear. But going back quite a few years ago, I was actually a serving police officer in the Met, and I was always interested into photography. I was always traveling and doing lots of things. I've been to the Himalayas back in when I was a lot younger. I was in the reservists. I was in the Territorial Army, and I was always the one who always took a camera with me. So I've always going to really cool places, taking pictures of hanging out of helicopters and all that. So that was always a hobby, and obviously I worked as well. But then a fair few years ago now, our wife and I, we were expecting our second child. And, it's all that exciting, going to have a baby and everything else. Even got a new camera, taking pictures of the new baby and everything. But then during the sort of the morning of the childbirth, I got, the usual, got the elbow, right, we need to go to the hospital, baby's coming. Time we got to the hospital, there was no heartbeat. So basically, in a long story short, is that the baby Scarlett, she died during childbirth because as she moved down, the umbilical cord tightened. It had a double knot in it, which is quite rare in itself. The knot tightened, that stopped blood flow and all the nutrients and oxygen and everything else, and she died in the womb. So it was full term, and so that kind of, as you can imagine, flips your priorities on its head. And whilst there was various things that I got involved with over the years in terms of, to support my mental well-being, because it was obviously quite a traumatic experience, didn't deal with it very well. That's probably a whole other story about how I got involved with strongmen. But the photography side is, I guess that photography became a kind of a new meaning to me. It was almost like a self-therapy, the idea of going out and taking pictures creatively, actually, helped in a sense of a mindfulness kind of way, the creative, the art, that sort of stuff. it just so happened roughly about the same sort of time, my wife and I, we met another couple who lost their baby at a similar time. Amanda, she was a part of the couple. She was a wedding photographer, and for one reason or another, we had conversations about photography, and she obviously knew that I was interested in photography. We were both, well, all of us were going through this bereavement process, if you like. And one day she said, "Oh, would you like to come and help me out on a wedding? You know your way around a camera, and fancy giving it a go." And I went, "Yeah, sure, why not? I'll do it." And it was like this kind of injection of enthusiasm, and it was like a fire going off in me to say, actually, this is what I want to do. The photography gave me this lease of life. I was with people on the happiest day of their lives, and the enjoyment of that kind of work, the creativity and everything else. And it just kind of grew organically. I never set out to leave the police or become a self-employed person. But over the years, people just kept asking me, "Oh, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? Can you do that?" And it just grew organically. I never kind of envisaged that I would be working for myself and doing photography and video for other people now. And that's kind of the very short version of it, even though that was probably a bit long. And I can talk about it. I am involved with the Strong Men charity that I mentioned, which is a men's bereavement charity. And I think even though they're separate things, there's a synergy with it because getting out with the camera, getting outside, getting fresh air. It's good for the mind. And obviously, that's the same ethos of strongmen being, the whole thing about physical activity, outdoor kind of activity is good for your mental health. And we met through a trip in relation to the strongmen charity. And that's it. That's, that kind of way of getting away, getting up in the mountains, the hills, or just even if it's just down the local park, it doesn't matter. But being outside with a camera gives me a lot of joy, and I get paid to do it nowadays, so that's quite good.
That's amazing. And as you said, it's a sad story, but also the position that you're now in, getting to do this and loving it so much. It's nice that it has led to something so positive for you. And I think the Strong Men charity are an incredible group, as we've been talking
Yeah.
about. That's how we met. We met through them. For anybody listening, if you want to learn more about the Strong Men, you can head over to their website, or if you head over to ultimateadventuretravel.co.uk, then there's a link on our partners page, because I felt it was really important from day one to partner with the Strong Men. We've been talking for a long time about how powerful being in the outdoors is for your mental well-being, your physical well-being. Connecting by disconnecting is something that has been coming up a lot more. Being able to interact with people who have had similar experiences, but also really understand the importance of being outdoors and all that stuff. So that's been a fantastic journey that we've been on in terms of being able to work together and do more stuff outdoors over the last year. They are a fantastic charity. For anybody listening, I definitely recommend checking them out. Now, we've got some exciting projects with them coming up. I know that you and I are going to be heading out to Morocco at the end of the year, and we're going to be climbing Mount Toubkal with the Strong Men charity, which is going to be a fantastic event. And it's something that I'm really looking forward to for lots of different reasons. One of the things that I was going to talk to you about as well is, I know that when I'm going to be heading out there, I'm really keen to get some great photographs that I can remember the trip by, because I have always been absolutely awful at pictures and videos and photography. I don't know. I'll be really interested, because you are a photographer. So I will be really interested to hear your answer on this. But when I'm in the mountains, or when I've gone outside and I've been with people, my first reaction is never to take a picture. I end up being very caught up in the moment. I end up having conversations with people and all that sort of stuff, but I never ever think to take a picture. And I was always getting told off when I first started getting into guiding and adventure travel. Typically, it's always going to come from your mum, isn't it? You get back from an adventure and they're like, "Oh, have you got any pictures to show us?" And no, I haven't. That didn't even cross my mind, but I wish I did. So is that the same for you? Do you forget to take pictures? I can't imagine you would as a photographer. Is that something are you looking for, when you look at something, are you thinking this would make a really cool picture? How does that work for you?
What it boils down to, and is the purpose of why you're doing what you're doing. So if you're on holiday or you're going away on a trip, why are you there? You're there because you want to enjoy the experience and as you say, be in the moment and all the rest of it. So of course, even as a photographer, yes, I love taking pictures and I love to do all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, that's not why I'm doing what I'm doing. And now there are occasions when I would be doing that. For example, we use some of the footage that I took to sort of make other videos and all the rest of it when I've been on away on trips. Or when I've taken photographs and little video clips to support the Strongmen charity. But there's always a little bit of purpose behind that. So I think, yeah, it's nice to take pictures, but you've got to get the balance right. It's that whole the I guess the philosophy is that, you know, if I'm going away, if it's like I'm going away for the weekend and I'm going to go walking or whatever, I will take the camera with me, or I'll take a camera with me. But it's a case of um taking the picture and then putting the camera away. You know, you don't want to be walking around, take snap, 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 because you're not going to look at all those photographs and go, oh, yeah, yeah, I remember. It's about finding the right moment and being deliberate with the photography. And that's why I say to my students, because I teach photography and do workshops for businesses. And it's very much about having a purpose, having a deliberate act, rather than just go, oh, look, it's a lovely sunset, click, and then forgetting about it. It's about, yeah, I'm taking that picture of that sunset, but then I've taken it and now I'm putting the camera away so I can now enjoy the moment. I know it's just a bit off topic, well, not kind of off topic. There's a film, I think it was, I can't remember the actor, it might have been Ben Stiller, might have been in it. I think it was called something to do with Walter Mitty or something. He meets up with oh, I forget the actor's name now, but they're in this mountainous area and he's trying to find this photographer is looking for this very rare snow leopard. Anyway, Ben Stiller finds him and he doesn't actually take the photograph, even though they can see it, it's lined up in the camera. And he's like, well, why didn't you take it? And he says, well, sometimes I just want to be in the moment and not actually press the button. And I thought that was a really good analogy of kind of what I'm getting at. It's not, you don't have to, yeah, take pictures, but it's about the purpose of what you're going away for. That's the important thing.
I really like that. Actually, that is a great way to kind of phrase it. And I need to watch that film again because that is actually a really good film.
It is, yeah.
And I think it is the Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
That's the one.
So I was, as I was saying, it's something that I've been terrible at taking pictures for so long. But what what do you think the biggest mistake is for people taking pictures on trip? What do you think the biggest mistake is that somebody can make when they're taking pictures?
Well, I suppose it's connected to the previous answer, is that's taking too many because you just it's like you're just filling up your camera with just ordinary moments. It's about being deliberate and finding the right moments to actually capture. I mean, from a technical perspective, is I always say to people, is that learn some of the basics. You know, learn a little bit more about the exposure triangle when we talk about photography, understanding light a little bit. You don't have to go like super technical and geeky with it, but having a good understanding of, well, if I'm in the bright sunshine at midday, then I'm going to look like I've got black eyes. It's about finding a little bit of shade if I'm taking pictures of people. It's about thinking about the direction of light on a scene is going to help you elevate your photographs to a better standard. So I guess that's a bit of a tip, really, is just, just try and, don't just use auto mode, understand a little bit more about what you're actually trying to achieve with the photograph. It's about being deliberate and having a purpose. I can't emphasize that enough. And the only way you're going to do that is actually having a bit of understanding, because we've all done it. You're out in the evening, you take a picture, and then everybody looks really orange, and you're like, why does everyone look like Donald Trump? And you're like, well, how is that? And it's like the white balance. And it's like, if you understand that, it helps you understand. So you might still want to use auto mode, but it gives you a little bit more of an advantage when you think, oh, I know it's going to be quite warm in here. I don't want skin tones of Donald Trump. I want to look natural. And just, you can tweak that. And most phones, it's actually very, very simple to do. But most people aren't deliberate with their photography. They just pull a phone out, take a snap and put it away. So I guess that is in a long way around. I think I've answered the
No,
question.
that's really good. Yeah, yeah. It's those things that I can change really quickly that I think would be fantastic, and that's really good for people listening as well. Is
Yeah.
what are those things that they can take away that are like quick fixes? So I suppose that then might be my next question: is what are maybe three things that people can do to improve photos straight away.
Well, I guess about it's the same answer for it. Is having a little bit of time to just understand some of the basics. An important one would be understanding the direction of light and how that can impact an image. Like I said, on a hot sunny day, midday, light's coming directly down. You got these horrible dark shadows in the eyes. You know, you want to create a little bit of direction. I know it's not always possible because when you're on a trip, you can't say, right, everybody stand over that tree so we get a bit. Doesn't work like that. But if you understand that, you appreciate the fact that I'm going to take a shot. It's not going to be great, but it's going to capture the moment. What is it that you want from the photograph? Think, you know, avoiding midday sun is probably a basic tip. You know, think about taking pictures in the morning or in the evening when you've got that dawn and dusk kind of light. It's photographers call it the golden hour, that sort of hour between daylight to nighttime, and you get a much more warmer tones. It's not so harsh. The light is generally a little bit softer. So, you know, if you're going to go out for a long walk, you might think it's midday. I'm not really going to bother with pictures. Obviously, if something happens, you need to, you know, record it by all means. But think about the evening when you get the sunset. That's the golden hour. When you get the sunrise, when you get those things, it's a little bit softer. I suppose a really basic thing to do, considering we're talking about adventure, is carry a bloody cleaning cloth. Because honestly, you know, making sure that if you've got greasy fingers or there's dirt and dust and, you know, all of those sorts of things that you come across when you're out, clean your lens because that will actually help a lot. The amount of pictures that look a bit blurry, and it's not because you've got the focus wrong, it's because you've got a dirty great finger mark across your lens. You know, just having little things like that just will help you take a better picture. I mean, that's a basic thing that I can think of. What else can I think of as a
I've
good tip?
definitely made that mistake before.
Yeah, I've done it myself. Like, I do it for a living, but angles, yeah. You know, most people, you're going to be standing, you get your camera out, you take your picture. But if you have taken the time to understand some of the basics of composition and understanding that perhaps I could take this shot, but I might want to take it vertically. I might want to take it from lower down. I might want to take it from higher up. Change the angle, give you a couple of varieties, and then it gives you you'll pick one, you know, I like that one more because it's slightly different. What's a classic one with that? Yeah, a good one is flowers. People take pictures of flowers, so they're kind of angled down looking at that flower. But that's how I see it when I'm walking past there. Get down to eye level, you know, get the camera at the same level as the flower. So you're kind of looking at it from a different perspective than what everyone else sees. And then it makes it more interesting. It makes the flower a little bit different to how everyone else will see that. So for travel photography, it's perfect for that because you think, you know, I can think of we turn up a location that's got a sign where we all point the camera and take the picture of the sign. Well, actually, what about we take it from a slightly different angle that what nobody else has thought of before, or it'll be less seen. So it creates a little bit more difference and a little bit more personal, bringing your personality into it. So change angles is another good tip, I would say.
Yeah, that's really good. I remember some of the pictures that were being taken when we were climbing Kilimanjaro. Some of my favorite ones have been maybe the less scripted, if that's a
Yeah.
way to put it. Obviously, we would pose for pictures when you get to a certain point, and you know you would almost have that group picture every time you get to one of the huts, and you know, and that's
Yeah.
the same with a lot of trips I think that are related around hiking and trekking. You'll take a lot of group pictures when you're on the way to Everest Base Camp, and you'll take a lot of group pictures, and they are fantastic. But my favorite picture, actually, I was going to say pictures, but I'll give you my favorite picture from the entire trip that we had on Kilimanjaro was there's a picture of three people. And it's in that golden hour, like you were talking about.
Mm.
So it's
I know
just
that,
as the
I know
sun
the
is
one you're
setting, and
talking
it's
about.
you know the one I'm talking about. It's the
Yeah.
latter half, and you can essentially make out the silhouettes, but
Yeah.
nothing really more of those three people. Um, and it was captured totally randomly. You know, it was somebody who took a picture quickly and they just thought, oh, that's quite cool with the shadows and stuff. But I think it's become my favorite picture for two reasons. One is because it was such a natural moment. It didn't feel staged or forced or anything like that. It was a picture that got taken really quickly of a moment. And the other is because I understand the story behind it. And, you know, we just had a really powerful moment where we were talking about summiting the next day. And Everybody had their own personal reasons for wanting to summit. And it had brought up a lot of emotions, I think, for people. And there was just such a beautiful picture of three figures talking, walking. It was simple. But yeah, that's become my favorite picture.
Yeah, it's those moments that I mean, photography for me, and again, I talk to my students about it, is it's storytelling. We're capturing a moment we're telling that can tell a story in itself or can be part of a story. And a moment like that is both, isn't it? It's that it tells a story in itself, but it's also part of the story of climbing Kilimanjaro. And I know, and I didn't take that picture. I didn't take those pictures. I know the pictures you're talking about,
See,
and they're
I can't
great.
remember. I can't actually remember who took it.
I don't remember who took, but it wasn't me. And I know that but that's kind of the idea, isn't it? It's not about, um, it's capturing those moments. It was being deliberate. They saw something, they saw an opportunity, they saw the light was nice, and they saw a moment that was, had an emotional content. It was telling a story. It's worth being deliberate and taking your camera out for that. Absolutely.
You mentioned about storytelling, and I think this is something
Yeah.
that maybe people listening will find quite interesting and useful. So, how do you start to go about telling a story with your pictures? For me, when I've been on a trip before, I am very much what I would call a point and shoot photographer.
Yeah.
I just pull my phone out. I go, oh, there's a nice view. I'll snap a picture and I'll move on. And what you've said about the composition, the angles, the framing, that's brilliant. Those are all things that I can apply immediately. But if I wanted to tell a bit more of a story, just like we've spoken about, is it as simple as just capturing a moment where you know more about it, or how did
Yeah.
you go about that?
It's like the very first sort of thing that we spoke about. It's about what is the purpose of the trip. So for when we climbed Kilimanjaro last year, that was the story of um, individuals and the reasons why they were doing it, but also the story of the adventure of us all climbing up together and the camaraderie and and some of the funny moments and the sad moments and everything that goes with it. It's about, when people struggle with storytelling, I say, well, it's not about, um, when I work with businesses, for example, it's not about constantly creating content. It's about documenting your content. It's about, well, what did we do that day? We had a very interesting breakfast, which we did on a few occasions. And it's that whole, well, I'll take a picture of it. I know it seems a bit cliche and taking a picture of your meal or whatever, but it's still documenting that moment. And then when you put it to, well, there's a picture of my breakfast. Here's a picture of somebody filling up their water bowl. Here's a picture of the group moving off. Then I'm going to put my camera away for a couple of hours because we're in that moment of walking and talking, enjoying the views and all the rest of it. Then we stop for a quick water bottle, a drink, and then you're taking another couple of pictures. So we're telling a story by
Mhm.
just documenting what we're doing. And then you've got that becomes the story, is the documentary of taking those images is the story in itself. You don't have to plan it unless, of course, that's the purpose of the trip. So if we're saying, I'm going to go on a trip because I am going to be documenting it for a specific purpose, and that's a different matter. That's work, and there will be certain aspects that I'd want to capture as part of that plan. And they would plan it. It would be a plan of, well, I need to capture this. I need to capture that. I need to capture that. You don't have to think of that if you're just going on a trip. Just think about documenting your story, but not overdoing it. You still got to, as you said earlier, you got to live in the moment. Otherwise, what's the point? You just want a
It
photograph.
goes back to that
Yeah,
simplicity, isn't it? As you were
100%,
saying,
hundred
keeping it
percent.
simple.
It doesn't have to. When I talk about storytelling, that photograph, who's it for starters? Is it for me to give me a memory? In which case, I look at that photo and then my mind drifts back to that moment and I feel those emotions that I was feeling at that time. Then that's for me. If it's because I'm just sharing it, oh, look at me, I'm standing on the top of Kilimanjaro. Well, that is for me, but it's also not showing off. But you know what I mean? I did that. So that's a different context. It can mean different things for different people. Just document is the simplest tip, but don't document every single moment. You don't need to.
No, and I never end up going through I'll take lots and lots of pictures and then I never look at them again. There's about
Yeah.
five from the trip that make it onto a social media and I'll go, oh, those are really good. And actually the hundreds of others that I've taken, not so much. But I suppose that in a way leads me on to my next question. With us talking about keeping it simple, and I suppose as well with the ease of taking so many pictures on your phone, do I need to be upgrading my camera equipment? So if I'm going, well, I'll be heading out on a couple of international trips this year. I am looking to get better at photography. That is something that really interests me. But do I need to be upgrading from my phone? Do I need to go out and buy a decent camera to take those better pictures? Should I be looking at different lenses? Should I be looking at investing in that kind of stuff? Because I'm a little bit worried as well. And I know I'm going on to 2 points now, but I'm a little bit worried about how much weight that's gonna take up as well. And you
Yeah.
know, when you have to carry everything, or you've got like an Everest base camp trip where you have the weight restrictions on the plane, that seems like I'll be sacrificing some quite important gear to do that. So what's your advice on what equipment I should take with me on a trip?
It boils back to this. We keep going back to the same. Is purpose. What is the purpose of you taking those pictures? Is it because it's something that you want to do because you enjoy photography and travel? Then yeah, go for it. Look at what type of equipment that you might want to get. But if you're just going on a trip, like for example, when I go away with the family, I don't. Now, do I really want to be lugging this up Kilimanjaro or Tukgal or anything like that? No, this is my work. Yeah, I'm not going to carry
So
that.
what have you got there? What kind of camera is that?
This is an SLR camera. It's a Canon. It's quite an old camera, but it's an old workhorse for me. I mean, this has set you back quite a few grand. I mean, they still sell these, but obviously it's not a mirrorless. Mirrorless is what everyone you would buy nowadays. But it's weighty, and yeah, I can lighten it, and I can use. This lens is a telephoto lens. It's 24 to 70, and it's a good all rounder. So if I do use this on any kind of trip, I'll take the battery grip off because it'll make it lighter. But the 24-70, I'm only using one lens, and it's a good variety from wide to a little bit more telephoto, if that makes sense. But I don't want to carry this. For example, let's talk about Kilimanjaro. If obviously you've done it numerous times, and how hard that summit night is. Do I really want to be lugging this up when I'm blowing out of my backside and there's half a much amount of oxygen in the air, and like your water bottle's freezing, the batteries are going to die because the cold's going to get into them. Is it worth it? No, it's not, unless it's like high end production that you need something very, very specific. That's staying at home, or at the very least, if it comes on a trip, it's going to stay at the hotel or in a safe space, but not when I'm out in the hills. I mean, I have taken it in the hills, and it is great, but it's not what I would generally take. A small camera, your phone, honestly, I use my phone when I'm on holiday and stuff like that. What I do use, if you're looking at weight, is looking at like the action cams, the things like the GoPro. I've got Insta 360, like the 360 photos. They are fantastic, but there is a bit of effort in it because you can then reframe it, and it's a little bit of extra work. I find a lot of people buy the 360 cameras and they realize that actually there can be potentially a bit of editing involved with repositioning the 360 and stuff. But this action cams are great. This is a Insta 360 Ace Pro. I don't know if it should come into focus. It might not because I'm on my autofocus. But this is a great. If I bring it back here, you can see it.
There you
Great
go.
little
That's
camera.
perfect.
It's waterproof. It does video. It takes why would a photographer would use a raw format or a DNG format for taking pictures? It gives you a little bit more leeway in terms of editing, but it takes normal JPEG photos, and you get all your little video clips, and it's waterproof. If you're sitting by the pool on a rest day and it drops in the water, it's not going to destroy the thing. So something like this, I mean, these kind of, they vary in price, but you expect to pay something like between 300 and 500 quid, depending on the model and everything else. But this is all, I kind of just literally had this and my phone in Kilimanjaro, and that would be kind of my starting point. If I was going to do something a little bit more, what have I got? Video, for example. I would probably bring along this little device as well. Now you've seen one of these before. Remember Ollie from Killy? He used one of these.
I have.
Yeah.
What's that called again?
This one is the DJI Pocket 3 or Osmo Pocket 3. Um, it's a vlogging camera, so this is the kind of thing that would be great in terms of like walking around Marrakesh and you want to do a quick selfie video, or if I was doing a quick interview, they're great because you can wirelessly collect them up to um, microphones like wireless mics and stuff like that. And talking of Tukal, which we've got coming up, I'll be bringing this and I'll be bringing this. So we've got backup. You know, if one, this isn't waterproof though, so this is the one that I have to be really careful with. Whereas if I'm walking around in a vehicle on a bit of a dusty trail, then I've got this one. And then if one breaks or whatever, I've still got the backup, if that makes sense.
Be worried about losing something like the DJI because it is quite small. I feel like
Yeah,
I'd
and
end up
I mean,
misplacing it.
it's, yeah, I mean, they're pocket size, so it'll be the sort of thing that I
Yeah.
would keep in my pocket, or I've got, the Osprey rucksack, lots of little zips and stuff. It can go in there quite safely. In fact, actually, I've got, I'm not doing a Blue Peter thing, but I've got some stuff here. This is,
Here's one I made earlier.
yeah, here's what I'm gonna do. This is great. This is, again, sorry, it's kind of been blurry, but if you can see that, that
No, that's
attaches
perfect.
that attaches to um my rucksack, and then you use, so when I was this is great because I can literally, it's magnetic, it clicks into your and it literally just pops out like that. So when I'm climbing up, I've always got it to hand. I'm not having to dig into my pocket to find my phone. And because this is pretty rugged, I still got protectors on it and this little case, but it only then takes seconds to just pull out and press the record button and get a bit of video or take a picture. And you're not having to like dig around for your phone, which, as we know, our phones are our life these days. So you've always got that kind of backup of it. And the batteries in these things are pretty good, to be fair. They do last a while. Having said that, that was one of my biggest worries, is making sure you've got enough battery packs and things like that. But, to be honest, they don't weigh a lot. And again, it's that compromise of like, I can carry this, but
Yeah.
I can get damn near cinematic footage and photography on this, and the other camera as well. So
I
it,
think
it
that I think after
sorry,
what you said, I'd definitely be looking at the DJI or the GoPro would be one of the options if I was looking to take my videography, especially to the next level, and having something that can handle the dust, the dirt, the water,
yeah.
then the GoPro is going to be fantastic. The DJI, as you said, has almost like cinematic quality and it's pocket sized, and that's something that I can vlog on. I can take really good shots quite easily. I think that's so clever that you can clip the GoPro as well to your rucksack. I'm a sucker for things like that. I think
Yeah,
those are
and
really cool
and
little
it does the same
additions.
with this. I can put the same attachment on
Okay,
the bottom
clever.
of it. I can have that. If it's like a day where it's not that dusty or it's not that, I might have that on. Or there's something happening. We know that, all right, we're going to reach this kind of cool checkpoint or whatever. I might have it ready to go. The only thing with having them on the outside is the weather, but it's more about the cold, because the cold will affect your batteries. I used to call it a dry bag, waterproof bag inside my jacket, so the batteries are near me to keep them at sort of body temperature. And then at least I had batteries to change if need be, because the cold will drain them. Which I would did. Although I never did run out, um, it was close towards the end of that horrendous. Well, not
That
horrendous, 'cause it was amazing,
that
but it
is a
was,
really good point.
yeah, having spare batteries. So I've got spare batteries, expect battery extenders, and of course the old the power packs. These things, have two or three of those in your bag. Make sure that they're fully charged before you start your trip. And it's light, it's not heavy stuff. Like I said, the SLR is amazing, and I will get amazing things. I mean, the benefit of it is the lens, the telephoto, the fact that you can isolate the background when you're using a telephoto lens, whereas most cameras GoPros included, and the Osmo Pocket 3 are fixed apertures. So they're all nearly always wide angle, and B, they have a fixed aperture, which means you can't control one aspect of the exposure triangle. So that's why you might hear people talk about using ND filters and things like that on little cameras, because it helps with the light, reducing the amount of light. You're on a bright sunny day and you're trying to film something, but keeping that cinematic view, you might want to use things like ND filter. But then I think that is then taking it to the next level. That's something that I would do if I was doing some photography or filmmaking. But honestly, if you're just doing it for a trip as good memories, stick it on auto, let the camera figure it out, because they're amazing. They really are. They really do save a lot of worrying about that stuff. That's not to say that's an excuse to not understand it, but it gets you out of a lot of trouble.
Those are really good. I think it was nice to be able to go through some of that stuff in a lot more detail because I know that when I've been looking online
Yeah.
and looking at taking my expedition videography and photography to the next level, I found the amount of information out there so overwhelming.
It
And
is.
a
Yeah.
lot of places would lead you to believe that you have to have the very latest and the very best if you're in with a chance of capturing anything good. But actually, to hear you saying that the best thing for you to have with you is the camera that you've got, and I know that that's a
Yeah.
cliche phrase, but it really is true. Um, the fact that so much can be done on your phone, but actually, if you are looking at taking it to that next level, then thinking about that compromise between weight, durability, all that other stuff, because I think this is something that doesn't get mentioned enough. And it's the difference between adventure travel and expeditions compared to a holiday. If you want to go on a safari, and they are amazing, don't get me wrong, safaris are fantastic. It is a totally different ball game to trekking up Kilimanjaro, going to Everest Base Camp, because you'll fly in, you can have your suitcase, you can have that in the hotel, you can leave your battery packs charging while you're out on safari, and you've got those big cameras. And that's brilliant, and you'll get some amazing shots. But when you're suddenly juggling all of the trekking equipment that you need alongside the camera and the battery packs, and it's interesting what you were saying about keeping them warm, because my advice to people with their phones is, well, keep it on an inside pocket close to you, because
Yeah.
there's nothing, well,
100%.
there's not nothing worse, but it is a bad feeling when you get to the top and you can't take a picture of your achievement because your phone's dead. And second to that, and it's just made me think of it and it made me laugh, was I saw a picture on a Kilimanjaro hiking group. And somebody, this is a little while ago now, but somebody had written a caption where they'd said, we spent 5 days hiking to the roof of Africa, blood, sweat, tears, all this sort of stuff. And this is the picture. Or we finally got to the top. It was really emotional. It was the best day of my life. I asked the guy to take us a picture, and here's what he got. And he had his finger in front of
Well,
the lens.
on the other one, you
Mm.
sometimes
But
see that
yeah,
it was in selfie mode, so you just see their eye. I've seen
well,
that.
that's like oh dear, that'd be like FaceTiming your grandparents and
Yeah,
just go, why am I
exactly
looking
that.
at your ear? Take it away from your ear.
Yeah,
No,
I,
that's okay.
I,
So that's really good as a starting point.
yeah, it's a great point that you made about the safari. I mean, I have done a safari in Kenya, and I had that beast, because you're not carrying stuff. You're in the vehicles, and it's fine. But when you're out doing some proper adventuring, when you're out on foot and you got to carry your stuff, and you've got to be mindful that, for example, this stuff is always on me, in the sense that I ain't going to leave that in my sort of travel bags, and say like in where you've got porters carrying things for you. No, 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 that goes with me. That's my responsibility. And just being aware of where your kit is at all times. You're in a foreign country. I don't know that necessarily. I mean, I never saw any problems whatsoever in terms of the thought of someone stealing a camera or trying to grab it, or rob me or whatever, like that sort of stuff. But it's about being aware of where your kit is, making sure it's packed away safely and securely in your bags, or on your pockets or wherever. So you've got to know. I mean, I'm not going to name names, but there was a little story from Kilimanjaro with with a certain videographer, not me, I hasten to add, who and I don't want to sort of put the lad on the spot because he did an amazing, amazing job. But there was a point where a camera wasn't quite where it was supposed to be for a period of time. Luckily, it was recovered, but it was like having that awareness of knowing where your stuff is, like wrist straps, all those kinds of things. Yeah, you might think it looks a bit, oh, he's got a wrist strap on. Have it because it's going to save your footage, save your films. It's really important.
I think stuff like that is really good for people to hear, actually, is, when you're on an expedition, when you're on an adventure holiday, you're not necessarily always going to be in perfect conditions, and I mean that mentally as well. You might not have slept brilliantly the night before. You'll be doing a lot of trekking. You might have quite a lot on your mind. So actually, and I say this about kit prep in general, and I've got a really structured way of packing my bag. Now, if anyone's interested, if you head over to the website, then I've written a blog about how to pack your bag. And it's because for me, when I'm tired and when I'm mentally concentrating on other things, that's when stuff gets forgotten. So exactly as you say, having your camera on a wrist strap. For me, my gloves, I always have my gloves on a wrist strap, just because that would be awful to leave behind. But yeah, tightening up that personal admin and expecting yourself to be a bit mentally fried with everything else that's going on.
100%. I'll just like to add to that. It was a very key point you made
Mm.
there about preparation is know your kit. So like say, right, oh, it's 2 weeks and we're flying out to this country or that country. I'm going to buy myself an Insta 360 Ace Pro or a GoPro, whatever. And then you put it in yeah, brilliant. Try it out. Yeah. Put it in your bag and away you go. And then you're away without the instruction manual, without any internet to look up how to do something, no YouTube videos on the top of a mountain. And you're like, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to change the settings. I don't know what practice before. Don't just leave it to the last minute. Get used to using your camera. Try it out in different scenarios so that when you are out and about on the side of a mountain, you know that, all right, I know if I press that, I can swipe that. And then um it's programmed in, so you can actually on some of those cameras, certainly the DJI you can, and the Ace Pro. In fact, all of them do. You can create your own little uh, presets. So you can create a preset for bright sunny day. I'm going to use that preset. I want to do some slow motion footage. I'll use that preset. So it's easy to just swipe and then you're there, you're ready to go to capture that moment because you don't want to be going, right, okay, oh my God, there's an eagle flying and you're like trying to, and it's gone. Having a bit of, you know, forethought and practice, understanding the equipment that you've got. A bit, we can be just basic to what at all levels, I would say that. And how to use your camera, but also all the other stuff that you take with you. So that links in with what you were saying about packing your kit, being prepared, and everything else. Having those boring checklists before you go away. It's very important.
Well, they are super important. It's why actually I made the decision when I started Ultimate Adventure Travel, was that we were going to use a app for our itineraries and our kit lists and everything on there, because it's so important for people to be able to run through that checklist. I do it every single time. Every single time before I go away, I run through the kit list. I might have been to that country or done Everest Base Camp 6 times. It doesn't mean that I'm going to necessarily remember everything. And even if I think I do, I love going through that list just to double check and make sure that
It's a
that
bit
I've got it all
geeky,
in
isn't
place.
it? It's a bit
It
geeky,
is a little bit
mountain,
geeky, and
now, oh,
yeah,
shiny socks. We obsess over
I
socks.
always so obsessed over socks, and I always have, if I can, I'll try and have a like a fresh pair of socks for like a Kilimanjaro summit night. I'll save them. They won't be worn at any other time. I'll keep them nice and fresh. But yeah, socks do. It's the
I did
weird
the
things
same.
that you end up talking about and obsessing about when you're away on an expedition. Graham, what I was going to ask you was, if you had to sum up what we've been talking about over the last 45 minutes, and I just think, this has been so useful for me, and I'm going to take away so much from this. I now actually feel like I've got direction with how to take photographs and the things that I should be considering. And I also feel like you've saved me a fortune because I'm not going to go out and buy some crazy expensive bit of kit that actually realistically I'm not going to be able to
I
to
say that
carry.
they're not
But
cheap.
if
The DJI Osmos, they're
no,
not cheap, but they are honestly for me, they're worth every penny.
I think it's so nice to have that personal recommendation because when I'm looking, sometimes I find it really difficult to know what is good and what isn't. I love that those are the stuff that you pointed out. But if you were to sum it up as some key takeaways, if somebody is just grabbing this section, what are the key takeaways that somebody should take on board for taking photographs and videos on an adventure travel trip?
Tough question because it's such a wide answer because everybody's different. Down to what's the purpose? Why are you a what are you trying to get out of the trip? You know, if you're going a sightseeing trip, then yeah, you might want to take something that's a little bit more to take better pictures for whatever reason. But you've got to balance that out with what you're doing and the purpose of what you're doing. Um, I'm not going to take a DSLR halfway up or all the way up to the top of Kilimanjaro or Toubkal or wherever else we end up going on adventures in the future. So it's a balancing act. It's a balancing act about what you want to get from it. You don't need to buy the most expensive bit of kit. If you're just going on a trip and it's because it's something that you want to reset your mindfulness or whatever it is, then why take your phone? You know, as long as you look after it, keep it in a dry bag, keep it waterproof, make sure you've got your power, having those things, then that would be like the minimum. It's all about understanding what you want to get from the trip and what memories you want from it. Do you want to be spending all day taking pictures, or do you want to, as I do, and you said the same thing, is about just living in the moment quite often. You know, that day, I'm going to go back. I use that example on Kilimanjaro. The day, for those watching who were there, will understand what it was all about. I think that day, the day before we walked up, was a very emotional day, and it was probably more powerful than actually reaching the top of Kilimanjaro. I didn't take any pictures of that because I was in that moment. And I'll always remember it. And there were snaps afterwards, like, for example, the snap, because that happened that same night, that after evening, didn't there? The picture of the three or, those, that's enough to spark the memory of what else happened that day. You know, be deliberate, pick the right moments. Don't shoot everything. Enjoy the experience. Yeah. We live on social media, all the influencers in there, they all want to do their videos, they all want to do their photos. And I do as well, because that's my business. But I still want to enjoy what I'm doing. Simple as that.
Of that. I think that's such a good takeaway. And I really hope that everybody has taken a lot on board by listening and watching this and has got some stuff that they can
You know what?
really,
I know
really actualize when on their next trip.
yeah, and I'm really sorry, but there was another thing that I thought of
No,
that's
no.
actually almost like the importance of the batteries is having the storage, having spare cards, SD cards and micro SD cards and stuff like that. Don't just go with one and then that one card fails and then you lose everything. You know, maybe do one every 2 days or one for certain sections of it. So I would have one for Summit Day, one for before it and stuff like that, just so that if that card does fail, and they do fail very rarely, if you but you haven't got all your eggs in one basket. It's just something else to think about. Some people just say,
It
"Oh,
goes back to that
yeah, the
proper
preparation."
preparation and yeah,
Definitely. It's just, when I do events, I change my card on my camera, like my normal camera for events. I'll change it halfway through, or where I'm using multiple cameras for different things, just so that I've got that. It's belt and braces is the old terminology for it. I'm doing an event this week where I'm using three separate cameras, all doing the same thing effectively, but from slightly different angles. But even if one fails, I know I've got two others that are capturing it, and vice versa. Don't just go away with one GoPro. I know it's more expensive, but you've got your phone. I've got a GoPro and I've got the DJI and I've got another camera as well. That's it. But that's variety to sort of save the day. But that's because that's for a specific purpose. It's just me on holiday, my phone and my GoPro. That's it.
I think the GoPros are so good for for those environments where you do want the versatility of taking up a mountain and diving in the sea and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
They
and
do
there's this
seem to be
robustness of it,
really, really
and
good for that.
yeah, it's dirty on the trail. It's very dusty. And certainly, Kelly was dusty in a lot of places. You want something that
Very
is,
dusty.
yeah, it's going to be something to protect your equipment. It's part of that preparation, protecting your batteries, protecting your SD cards, so that at least you've got something to come back with. If even if something gets lost or failed or broken, you've got something, if that makes sense.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Now, I'm asking everybody two questions at the end. They're like two final questions, and I'm really interested to get your answers. Now, I haven't given you any preparation. I'm quite keen to see what your answer is
Oh, there
just
we go.
on the spot. I mean, you can again, you can tell none of this is scripted, and that's what I really like. I like being able to just have these conversations and flow and learn from the people opposite me. So thank you again for your time. The first question that I've got is, what's one moment from your travels that has changed the way you see the world?
I know it's going to sound really cliche, and it is just off the top of my head, but it's not necessarily the destination, but it's the journey, and also who you're doing that journey with. Whether it's something that you do for yourself when you're on your own, because I do stuff on my own as well, but it's also when you're with a group of people and getting to know other people and doing that thing with other people is really kind of there for my mindset and mindfulness. It's about that experience and journey. It's not about, oh, we're going to another country. Yeah, that's exciting, but it's the journey is just as important as, like I said, you know, reaching the top of Kilimanjaro was amazing in itself, but there were moments throughout that trip that actually mean more to me than actually reaching the top. And that's a massive thing to say. Um, so I guess that answers it really. It's about people. You're not alone. You're doing it with someone. Overcoming those challenges on an adventure with other people is far more rewarding, I think, than just getting to the top.
Completely agree with you. I think that's a fantastic answer. The second question that I've got for you, and the final question, is what has adventure travel taught you that nothing else in life has?
In a way, I suppose it's very linked to the previous question. Um, that for me, travel, adventure, just getting away from normal life is profoundly affects my mental well-being. It's my reset. It's that place that it's like your happy place. Think doing adventure kind of travel just opens your mind to other possibilities. You find yourself pushing yourself beyond what you thought you're capable of. When you sort of like get to a point, you think, "Do you know what? I've had enough. I'm not going any further." But you're like, "No, I'm going to push a little bit further." It's knowing your limits, understanding that you can push yourself a little bit further than you otherwise would. Um, and I also think that putting yourself in a situation where you don't have all the mod cons, a toilet that you can sit on, I will say that. But but do you know what I mean? It's like having a little bit of not harshness, but having a bit of you appreciate things. I think that's the point I'm making. That you appreciate the people that you're with, you appreciate your home life, you appreciate what you've got. You get that cliche of an attitude of gratitude. You're grateful for the situation that you're in. You're grateful that you're able to climb a mountain. You're able to do these things. I think that adventure kind of travel taught me that it's great, good for me in terms of my mental health. It gives me a challenge to actually keep physically fit because I know I'm going to be doing something physical and the people I'm with. I think that's the best answer I could probably say off the cuff.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I think, again, that is another brilliant answer. And I agree completely with both of them. For me, it's always been about the experiences and the people more than ticking off items off a bucket list. I think the idea of having a bucket list is fantastic. but it's not something that I want to have as a tick box. I don't want to go to a country, see something, and then move on. It's about that journey whilst I'm there, and the people always make it such an experience. I've been asked a few times why, or do you get bored of going to the same place quite often? And my answer is always no, because the people are different every single time, and that makes the experience so much different. Um, so no, I think fantastic answers to the question. Well, Graham, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on. If anybody is listening and they are happening to look for a photographer or somebody to photograph their wedding or get some headshots done or anything like that, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, not so much the weddings these days. I still do the occasional. I don't advertise the fact. I generally speak. If you are getting married and you want me to be a wedding photographer, I'd still. But I have to like you. It's more like you come to me, and if I like you, then I'll do it. If I don't like you, then forget it.
Got to pass the test.
Yeah, you got to pass a little test with weddings. Don't get me wrong, I do enjoy them, but it's I like working with certain types of people when it comes to that. But generally speaking, it's commercial work. So if you've got a business, professional, that kind of stuff is the stuff that I do. You need content for your website, you need video, you need photography. My website is quite simple. It's my name, grahambakerphotography.com. I'm on all the social media platforms, though I don't really post massive amounts, maybe on average 2 or 3 times a week. But my handle is Graham Baker GBP. So Graham Baker GBP. And follow me. I'd love to connect and chat to people. If you just got questions and you want to ask me anything, then feel free to connect as well. I don't sort of go, no, unless you pay me, I'm gonna. I'd rather be helpful than not. But yeah, commercial work. I do teach photography as well. So I teach at a college for adult education. I also teach special needs adults, and I also teach photography to small businesses that don't necessarily have the budget to do stuff or hire professional videographers and photographers. I can go in and teach them how to do some of this stuff at least themselves. GrahamBakerPhotography.com. That's me.
It's brilliant. Well, I will be including the links to Graham's socials and website into the show notes below. So anybody who is interested in checking out the work that Graham does can find that nice and easily. I will also say the nicest man I have ever had the privilege of working with and walking alongside, genuinely, and I'm not just saying that, one of the nicest people. I cannot recommend reaching out to Graham if you have anything related to photography and getting some headshots done for your business or personal life. Again, thank you so much for coming on. I've had such an amazing time talking to you, and I've learned an incredible amount. So I really do appreciate your time. And I am very much looking forward to us taking on Tube Cow in September.
Well, thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I can't wait to see you at the top of Tukali too. So yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Graham.
Thank you.